Let's now discuss the issue further. We've been joined live on the news at 10 from our Abuja studio by an economic analyst and professor of capital market from the Nasarawa State University, Professor Uche Owaleke. Thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Yeah, thank you, Amarachi. It's my pleasure.
60 years after independence, how would you describe the state of the Nigerian economy?
Well, let me start from the sunny side. Looking at the telecom sector, for example, the music, the entertainment industry, including the financial sector that has been through trying times and today has emerged stronger. You know, one has something to cheer. But if you look at the overall economic development indices, it's quite nothing to write home about. Whether you're looking at the stock of infrastructure in Nigeria, just about 35% of GDP. Compare that to South Africa's over 80%. Or you're looking at income per capita. In your background report, you talked about Malaysia. Yes, Malaysia and Nigeria were more or less contemporaries in the 60s. You can also add countries like Singapore, Indonesia, even South Korea. But today, what is the story? They have left us behind. So Nigeria is lagging behind in many human development indicators. Overall standard of living, generally. So I think if you look at it overall, as I said earlier on, we have a long way to go.
And how do we play catch-up at this point? How do we then ensure that economic growth is commensurate with the population growth, which is currently accelerating faster than economic growth?
Yes, if you look at the development plans we've had, over the years since 1960, the first one was 62 to 68. We also had 70 to 74, 75 to 80, 81 to 85, and we've had other economic roadmaps, since then, whether you're talking about the SAP, the NEET, the Vision 2010, Vision 2020, and now the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. You will notice a common string, running through all of them, and that's talking about diversification of the economy away from oil. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. Today, oil still accounts for over 90%, of our forex earnings, and because of our overexposure, because of the vulnerability, a lot of other things are, they are distorted. So for me, the burn is largely implementation, implementation of these plans, and it's also stemming from political instability. Which is why one of the recommendations I want to make here is that the 4-year election cycle, for me, is a drag on economic growth. If it's possible, let's have a single term of 6 years for governors and presidents. That will go a long way to solve this problem. Because what you find is that somebody is elected into office, the first 2 years he tries to settle in. The third day he begins to worry about the second term. So if you can have a single term of 6 years, that will go a long way to handle this challenge. So for me, that's major. The other thing also has to do with investing in our people, just as the ERGP mentioned. If you look at the economic sustainability plan, a good number of things have come up there. For example, government is talking about mass housing, mass housing, where it talks about having about 300,000 housing units on an annual basis. Okay, so that requires sustainability, and one of the ways we can sustain this, including the new ERGP they want to come up with now, is to find a way of safeguarding these economic plans. And one way we can safeguard the economic plans is to have a legal backing, that safeguards them. The country of Puerto Rico, for example, to make sure that its economic development plan is safeguarded, had to pass a law, the Economic Revitalization Bill, okay, which eventually, of course, became an act. So we can do the same here, because if we don't do that, the tendency or the likelihood is that a successive government, coming in would jettison the plan and then come up with its own plan. So one may argue that after all we have the Fiscal Responsibility Act. But remember too, that act is only about budget and medium-term expenditure frameworks, which must derive from the plan. So if the plan is not ring-fenced, using a law, then it becomes difficult to have continuity, to have sustainability, especially if the incumbent leaves office. So for me, political instability is one, and we should find a way of us making sure that whatever plan we have in place is implemented even by successive administrations.
Professor Uche Nwaleke, thank you again for joining us tonight. Appreciate your thoughts and your analysis on the issue.
Pleasure, thanks.